Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 68 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this podcast series, we are going to continue on our preparing for the match. So this is part 2, in which I'm going to talk a little bit about things to think about and getting ready for going to and competing in some shooting matches. So without further ado, here we go. All right, so in the last episode, we did discuss preparing for the match. That was part 1, in which we talked a lot about the equipment and everything that was going to be needed to sort of get ready to go and compete. Some things to think about that are important, from rifle setup to fundamentals of marksmanship. In part 2 of the series, what I want to cover is preparing for the match itself. What you're taking, your mindset, how to deal with some of the more stressful events that are going to be thrown your way. And so consider this part 2 tips and tricks, where we're going to share with you just all of the little things that we've learned over the years, the little pieces of advice that we were given that I really thought made a difference in helping me. So right out of the gate, let's talk about equipment and getting yourself ready for the match itself, because you're going to take lots of gear. So number 1 right out of the gate is what I would consider gear management. Over the years, we've seen this play heck with shooters and cause them all kinds of grief, and actually cost them a lot of time, both in matches and in hunting scenarios. So let's just touch base on gear management first. So it doesn't matter whether you're in a hunt or at a match. When it's time to shoot, it is absolutely not the right time to be searching for misplaced gear. So I can't stress how important it really is to put everything back in the same place where it's supposed to go every time you use it. That will save you a lot of unnecessary stress, save you some time and some aggravation. I have been on hunts and in matches where we get to different stages and relays, and the people with us are dumping their backpacks out, looking for this or that or the other thing. That is the wrong time to be doing that. That is just poor gear management right out of the gate. And all it does is come back to haunt you later at the event or on a hunt somewhere. So put everything back where it's supposed to go every single time. You want to be able to find it quickly, efficiently when you need it, and put it back where it's supposed to go when you're done. Take the time. Always make a prioritized list when you're packing. And this goes for hunting and match shooting. And also remember that the bigger pack you buy, the more you're going to carry. And so I try to make a list of things that are really important. And then I go through that list and I critique it even more to try to make sure that I'm not taking too much stuff. Because you can take too much stuff, which A, wears you down at the match because you're carrying a lot of this gear. B, sometimes makes it harder to find everything because every place has to have a place to go. And C, just adds a lot of extra stress to that. So I make sure that I buy a pack that's big enough to hold all of my stuff that I need, but I try not to, or I resist the urge to go to Cabela's and buy the largest pack known to man, and knowing that when I get home, I am going to fill it. So the bigger pack you buy, the more stuff you're going to carry. This is a curse for us, the shooters, both as hunters and competitors. This is a curse to people who like to do adventure motorcycle riding. They take too much gear. Same thing with maybe people who are overlanding or taking, just everything and anything they can. And all of a sudden it becomes a less than pleasurable experience. So make sure you use a prioritized list when you're packing and try to get the smallest pack that you can get by with. Now, in saying that though, I will say and give a shout out to Everly Stock. I've used their stocks forever. I used their packs forever. I used a Gunslinger too, but there's so many. And keep in mind, my particular pack is probably, my guess is somewhere close to 13 years old. and still using it today. And now there's so many more good packs coming on the market, and there's so many options that Eberly stock has now that wasn't available back then. So if I was to rebuy it, maybe I wouldn't buy the Gunslinger 2, or maybe there's a newer version of it out there that works even better. But I will say that make yourself purchase a really, really good quality backpack. It puts the load more on your hips rather than on your shoulders all the time. Well thought out, and it's made by people who hunt and shoot, so they know that you're going to need places to put certain things. Sharing the load. This is a big one. If you're going on a hunt, not everybody needs to carry a tripod and a spotting scope. I mean, I have one. I know lots of guys that have their own. But if we're actually going on a hunting trip, maybe one person brings the tripod and spotting scope, another person brings the rangefinder, spare batteries, another person brings maybe a shooting tripod or something like that. But share the load. You don't have to bring everything all the time. If you're going out with people that you're going to spend time with, and you're not going to break apart in the field and everybody go their separate ways, and if that's the case, then bring what is a priority to you. But if you're going to stay in a group or small party of 2 or 3 people, even at matches, sometimes just sharing the load a little bit, sharing gear. I have seen this 1,000 times where we're getting ready to shoot something really weird that we've never shot before. Like, one thing about match directors is the only limit is their imagination, and I swear that is limitless when it comes to throwing out challenging stages, right? And so you'll come up to a stage and you'll be like, oh boy, and somebody comes up with a good solution in your group. And the next couple guys that are stepping up to shoot are now using that, like, here, keep this on here and use this, so they share the bag they're using. They share, like, sometimes we'll tie our rifles to the trees in certain ways. We'll leave those hang there so the next shooter coming up behind us can use it. It's just good relationships, and, we're only competing against ourselves in these matches, so there's no harm, no foul. That's what this sport is about. And so we share all the time, and same thing with these types of events. So if you're going to a match with a group of people and you're going to be on a relay, again, sometimes you can share the load with some different equipment so you have a little bit more variety of gear without all of you carrying the same thing. I know we talked about this in our previous episode, but I'm just going to touch base on it really quick. Again, we're talking about preparing for the match, and here are some really common rifle failures that you're going to have to address and be ready for at the match. Rings and bases. Make sure that you have a really good set of tools to tighten everything up if they loosen up on you in the field. So we like the fix-it sticks. I have one for my rifle, and I keep extra tools in there that would probably fit most rifles on the line in case I'm shooting with somebody and their action screws loosen up or their scope rings loosen up. This stuff happens. And so make sure you have the tools for your gun to maintain it in the field and to tighten things if they loosen. Improper use of Loctite. So if you're using Loctite, make sure you're using the right stuff. If you got to get the gun apart for any reason, if you use the wrong Loctite, you're going to be in big trouble. Make sure when you're tightening everything on your gun that you tighten everything to spec. So have a good set of torque wrenches or torque limiters like that's in the fix-it sticks. That way you're tightening everything, not the feel. Well, I think that feels like 45 inch-pounds. Tighten everything the way it's supposed to be using good torque limiters, and that way you can go back later on and you'll know if they've loosened because you'll hit it with that same torque limiter and it moves. So really good set of tools with the proper torque limiters or inch-pound wrench that allows you to set the proper inch-pounds as you're tightening different things on the rifle if they need to be tightened in the field. And last but not least is like all the different lubes and cleaners and chemicals and stuff you'll see in and on guys' rifles. Just common stuff. We use Milcom grease and oil. It's really good. Follow the instructions on how you get it on the bolt. You can wipe it dry and it'll run like it's wet, but without things sticking to it. That's sort of nice if you're out shooting in dusty and dry conditions, especially with muzzle brakes now throwing dirt everywhere every time a round is cracked off. So make sure you have the lubes are capable of handling the temperatures that you're in. So if you're shooting at sub-zero temperatures or really cold weather, some lubricants will freeze. This is something that you need to take into consideration hunting and in a match. Just make sure that you don't have something in the gun that, hey, at 32 degrees or 28 degrees, this oil will freeze. Not good. If your firing pin doesn't fall, no bang's going to happen. And so make sure that you know what you're putting in the gun and its tolerances, or at least its temperature range in which it can work in. Another very useful field tip that I like to share all the time, and I talk about this at the school, and then we'll get on to actually preparing for the match and some really, I think, important key things to pay attention to. But just a general rule is this: never stand when you can kneel, never kneel when you can set, never set when you can go prone, and always take the time to look around and shoot from the most stable position you can find. And so if you can use your tripod leg as to stabilize the rear of the rifle, whether you're in a hunt or a match, why not? If you can slide over and get your rifle off a rock, if you can have your buddy lay down with his backpack on and shoot off his backpack, I mean, I can just, all of these things should be carved in stone, that you go to the lowest, most stable position that you can shoot from when you're shooting at a target. There's no reason to rush to shot unless it's mandatory that it is rushed. So if you have time, especially at the stages where you're standing there watching other people shoot, you're waiting for your turn to shoot, you should be thinking about your setup. You should be all prepared before they call you to come up and get on the line. Have all of your kits sorted out. Have an idea of what plan A is. And, oh my gosh, if plan A doesn't work, how are you going to initiate plan B? Right? So you plan on using, I've seen this in matches where you plan on using your bipod with the feet folded forward, you lay down to shoot under an object, and you cannot see because your scope is too high and you're catching the bottom of the object in your scope. Have plan B that you can reach up there and quickly remove that bipod and throw it off to the side. Just things to think about. The last part to that, finding the most stable position, is that when you get in that position, mentally prepare to take the shot. So this is a tough one for guys to get into matches. It's hard because your heart rate is up, you're excited to be there, and if it wasn't, you probably need to find a different hobby. So when I go to matches or have shot in matches in the past, I love it. My heart's thumping through my chest. I mean, this is what I love to do. So throw me out there with a rifle and hit the timer and say go, I'm excited. But you have to mentally focus. You know, I always tell guys, get your shooter's hat on. Start thinking about before you get on the line. Get your mindset right. What I have found over the years is that it's sort of funny that some of the matches I did the best in seem to be the most effortless shooting I've ever done. You get on the gun, you get on target, you pull the trigger, and you hit it. It was amazing. It was just like it worked. And some of the matches where you're willing the bullet to go where you want it to go, where you're forcing it, and I've got this, and you're mentally going to make that bullet hit that target, has been some of the hardest matches I've ever shot. I think that goes with your confidence in your equipment and training and really getting tuned up with your rifle. Your rifle sort of becomes an extension of your body. You know it that well. Your dope is just rock solid. And, all you have to do now is figure out when to dial the correct dope, get your heart rate settled in, get your breathing settled in, focus on fundamentals and squeeze the trigger. And it was just amazing. Like you're just like, wow, this actually seems like it's pretty easy today. And one of the best key advices I can give you in these scenarios is don't keep score. In other words, don't try to pay attention to where you're at on the scoreboard. If people try to tell you where you're at, ask them to stop. Because what I found is if you find out early in a match or halfway through a match that you're in the top 3, you inadvertently put pressure on yourself. Or if you shank a shot or two, you start to get into the dumps, or mentally you start to get frustrated, or darn it, I'm going to blow this. That type of stuff starts floating through your head. It's not good. So I've done this many, many times. I never look. I don't care where I'm at. I ask guys, don't tell me. I'm here to throw my hat in the ring, shoot the best I can do for the entire match. Halfway through doesn't really mean much, And so if you let something like that mentally get in your head, or for example, I've watched guys come from behind, like they had an average day 1. And day 2, man, you couldn't buy a miss. I mean, they're just cleaning everything up and they're having the time of their lives. But had they got it in their head that, wow, man, I'm in the bottom 50%, then maybe they're going to continue shooting that way on day 2. The match isn't over until the last round goes downrange, hit or miss. And I am telling you, I've seen so many matches where the last shot or two separated 1st through 10th. It was amazing. Guys are so neck and neck, and they're shooting so well that it usually comes down to the last shot of the day sometimes. It's amazing and it's fun to watch. But don't pay attention to your score. I don't know if there's any reason to, other than if it's good, you're going to put pressure on yourself. If it's bad, you're going to get into the dumps and start letting your head play games with you. So I try not to pay attention to my score. Some other things now, and we're just going to talk about match shooting in general. And by the way, the PRS Championship kicks off this weekend. I am so jealous. I wish I could be there. This last month, we've had a lot of business stuff we've been working on in the background, and it has just taken a lot of our time. Last week, I was in the great state of Georgia for a couple meetings, and hence we didn't get a podcast or two up, and just part of the business. And we try not to advertise when we're leaving. That way people don't know that the shop is abandoned for a while or that we're out of town. And so we just go and handle our business and then pick things back up when we get back home. I am so looking forward to next year of joining everybody at some of these matches. The last 4 years with our business, especially with working on all the prototyping that we've been doing in research and development, and oh man, it has been just blinding. I don't know if I've been on a vacation in close to 4.5 years. My wife would say maybe a little bit longer, but it was worth it for sure because of where we're at now. And it's really exciting that we actually get to go out and start shooting again. So I really, really miss heading out with the guys and going and shooting the matches. It's something that drove me into this business to begin with. And the big PRS Championship match is this weekend. I'd like to wish everybody that's heading out to it the best of luck. Have a great time, throw your hat in the ring, and just to know I wish I could be there with you all to enjoy it with you. Next year, I'm really looking forward to being able to spend some time on the road and enjoying some of the matches. We've got lots of close friends that we haven't gotten to shoot with in a couple of years. We've got some sponsored shooters. We've got some of our instructors out there that are shooting, and we're just not able to spend the time in the field with them as we would like to, or even as we used to. And so next year, as a promise, hopefully we'll get a chance to see a lot of you guys at these matches and just enjoy some days putting some rounds downrange together. So anyway, really, good luck to everybody heading out to the match that's coming up. Starts tomorrow. I know we got a lot of friends that are en route. So really just wishing you guys the best of luck when you get there. All right, so on to the preparing for the match. Now, before we get into that, I do want to say thanks to Krieger Barrels. Krieger Barrels is a proud sponsor of our show. So for nearly 40 years, they've been supplying shooters with precision single-point cut rifled match-grade barrels. And in addition to their in-stock, ready-to-ship barrels at KriegerDirect.com, they also have an online inventory. So the online inventory sometimes has barrels that have either overruns or customers have changed orders midway through. So sometimes offers some unique calibers, twists, lengths. And so if you need a barrel, give Krieger a call. They got a great staff there, but you can log online at KriegerDirect.com or KriegerBarrels.com, and you can look at both inventories. And in some cases, have your barrel shipped out the same day. So you can get your barrel in hand and get your rifle up and running quickly. So stop over to KriegerBarrels.com or KriegerDirect.com today. All right, so continuing on with preparing for the match. Some really great advice that I've gotten over the years. Time management becomes a really big deal now, more than ever. It used to be in the old, that sort of makes you sound old when you say stuff like that. Used to be. But it used to be you'd set up for a stage, you would have a fair amount of time, and it was one shot, one hit type mentality, So it was about preparation, preparing for the shot, thinking the best way to get the shot downrange and getting that first round there and getting that hit. With the coming along of PRS, and don't get me wrong, in some of these other matches, there were some really fast stages too that sometimes are mind-boggling that guys are able to do some of this stuff. But the PRS is really a timed event, and so time management becomes a really, really big deal. So I'm going to share with you a couple of things that were told to me when I was younger that really stuck with me, and it keeps things in perspective. The first thing that someone told me, I won a really big match that was sort of one of my goals to win at least once in my lifetime, and I actually was shocked. I didn't remember I said I don't keep score, and I thought, well, I probably maybe got in the top 10, top 20, but I was going to drive down to the meeting after the match was over and congratulate the winner and see how everybody did and, say goodbye to old friends. Well, when I showed up and I'm standing there talking and here comes the match director up with the trophy and he hands it to me and he says, "Congratulations." And I was stunned. I was shocked, actually, that I was like, he goes, "Yeah, you won the match." I'm like, "You're kidding me." And now he's a little bit older, plain spoken. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he said, "Jamie, when it comes to matches like this, it's not the best shooter at any position that will win these type of field matches. It's the well-rounded shooter that can shoot well at all of them. Not perfect, but good enough to get by. So the best prone shooter is probably not going to win that match. The best slung shooter is probably not going to win that match. It's the guy that can figure it out and do a lot of these different positions well without dropping the ball too much is usually the winner." And that stuck with me, that I don't have to be a perfect prone shooter. I don't have to be a perfect slung shooter. I used to practice a lot of these positions a lot because I always picked out what I was worse at or my weakest area in my shooting, and I would focus on it like crazy. And he sort of changed my mindset behind that work to become good, work to become consistent, and then move on and keep working on everything else because it's the well-rounded shooter that can hold his own at all these positions, maybe not the best at any of them, but pretty good, that will win. And so that stuck with me. The other thing that he told me once, years prior in a match, is there was a really fast stage. It was called Sergeant York Off the Rocks. Some of you might have heard of that stage or a shot of the match where that stage is presented. You had to shoot, I think it was 5 to 7 targets, maybe 7 targets from far to near, and you had like 11 seconds or something. It was an insane amount of time in the most god-awful, uncomfortable position you could think of. And you had to clear the last shot and beat the timer for any of the points to count, or you got a 0. And so I practiced this stage like crazy at home, trying to figure out the best way to approach it. And so when I shot it, I beat the clock all right, didn't hit anything. So he looked at me and he said, "Jamie, you can't miss fast enough to win any match." And he shook his head and just smiled. And that stuck with me forever, that shoot as fast as you can to score hits. Don't try to clear it and miss everything in the process of trying to clear a timer. So only go as fast as you can to score hits. So a lot of an example we use here at the school is we do a 10-shot drill at 100 yards. And we're fair to the new students. It's a fun drill to shoot, by the way. And we let them run through once, like in a dry fire technique, and sort of give them a chance to pace it out. In a match scenario, that's a 60-second drill, but guys will have 10-round magazines. At the school, we make them do a reload. And we still slow them down a little bit. So we try to give them enough time to successfully shoot the target. So we have 10 circles up at 100 yards, and they have to shoot 1 shot for each circle, and we give them a time limit. And I remind the guys there that I would rather see you get 6 hits than have 10 misses. So in other words, we're going to give you 10 shots at 10 dots, but if you shoot 10 times and don't hit a single dot, you're sort of missing the whole point of the drill. So don't shoot any faster than you can score hits. And so if that means I would rather see the guy shoot 6 times and have 6 hits than shoot 10 times and have 10 misses. Now, when it comes to time management, here's one of the things that I've learned, whether it works for others, I don't know, I'm going to throw it out there, that I don't use a stopwatch. I don't look at a timer. I don't have my watch out there. The reason being is every time you have to take your eyes off the target or the stage that you're shooting to look at your timer, you're losing time. And so a little trick that I have learned, because a lot of the matches, let's just say, for example, we've shot matches where we had to run to a second floor of a building, flip over cards, and shoot particular targets in a particular order, and you got 60 seconds. So I would say, okay, I'm going to give myself, 15 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever it is to get to the top. and I've got 6 targets to engage. I'm going to give myself 5 seconds a target. So when I start working the steel, in my head, I'm counting 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1, boom, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1, boom. And so I'm timing the shots. Now, if I can't get the shot off in time, I'll give myself the extra second or two, but then I'll start back over at that 1, 1,000, 2, 1. And I'm doing this in my head. So I am trying to pace myself so I don't get too antsy and start blazing through everything and missing all the stuff. I'm trying to give myself enough time, and sometimes you'll find that you can get the shot off earlier. So we've used to shoot targets where we had to run back and forth between things. We had obstacle courses, so I would have like 10 seconds of target in my mind. It was let's just say it was a 60-second drill, and we had 10 targets. So I've got 6 seconds a shot. So I might line up, go 1, 1,000, 2. But when I'm ready to shoot, I'm going to shoot. Bang! I've beat the 6-second timer in my head. I start counting again. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. Bang! 1, 1,000. I know I'm beating the clock, and so then I can, if I have to, I know I can give myself a little bit more time towards the end if I need it. But I try to break it down in small, like little ticks in my head that I can keep count. So I can count to 10 seconds and I can start again. I can count to 10 seconds, and if I'm shooting 10 targets, that means I need 100 seconds. If I'm shooting 10 targets in 2 minutes, I've got 12 seconds of target from the start to clear it. I just try to keep those numbers rolling in my head. That way I'm not constantly looking at a watch or looking at a timer or anything like that. I tell guys all the time, if you take your head off the gun and you look down at your watch, you see the time, you get your head back in the gun, and you find your target, you've already burned 3 to 5 seconds. And if you do that 3 times, that's 15 seconds. So just save yourself the extra stress. Give yourself a set amount of time between each shots and work it. And get as far as you can, as efficiently as you can. Hold over and hold off. And then we're going to talk about gear specific. You really need to understand the techniques of holdover and hold off. You have to be able to hold your dope for different targets over without dialing. Now, if time permits, I prefer to dial my dope and hold the wind. I always hold the wind. I never dial the wind, just to throw that out there. If I have time to dial, I'll dial. But if it's a very stressed event, then I'll just hold. It saves me from having to reach up and turn those knobs and then bring my hand back down to shoot the rifle. You should know your dope in your head to 1,000 yards. Like clockwork. There is nothing worse than setting up for a stage with targets from 300 to 650 yards and you trying to memorize the dope on the spot. So having a rifle that you know like the back of your hand, at least close enough that you can look at your click chart and you can look at your dope real quick and you can say, oh yeah, okay, it's whatever. 300 yards, 0.9 mils, right? 1.1 mils, whatever it might be. 400 yards, 2.5, whatever it might be. So, for example, the average shooter should know that 0.5 mils at 200 yards is going to give you a hit. 1 mil at 300 yards is going to give you a hit. But you should know your rifle's dope. You should take the time to memorize it, at least in 50-yard increments. And that way, in your head, you're saying, rather than 650 yards or 3.1, in your head, you're saying, okay, I know these targets are 300 to 650. So rather than saying the yardage, you're just saying the dope. Okay, 2.1, bang, cling. 3.2, bang, cling. 4.7, bang, cling. 3.1, bang, cling. You're saying your dope, you know it. Take the time to know the dope on your rifle. Here's where shooting the same rifle for years plays dividends. I mean, I didn't change my load forever. I can tell you when I shot a 260, I shot 41.7 grains, a 43.50, and a 140 grain bullet. That's what I shot through my rifle. Same load, every rifle. And they all shot that load really well. Of course, same reamers, same barrels, all the other stuff. But even if I had to tweak my load, let's say for one rifle, I did. I shot 42 grains. But because of the speed differences in the barrel, sometimes it's still close. So I'm not starting off with a brand new caliber, different BC bullet, different speeds, trying to memorize brand new dope all the time. So get to know one rifle really well, make it your rifle, and then learn it. Learn it like crazy. Take the time to study it. That way you know, or somebody hollers out at 1,000 yards, oh, there it is, 1,000 yards. Well, it's in your 6.5 Creedmoor, it's 7.7 mils or whatever it might be. Or if you're shooting a 308, it's 10.6 mils, whatever it might be. You should know that number. That takes a lot of stress off of you, as well as keeps a lot of distractions from getting in your head. You can't multi-prioritize. So in other words, you can multitask. You can wash the dishes and listen to the radio. But you can't wash the dishes and balance your checkbook. Same thing with shooting. You have multiple tasks now at hand, from focusing on the wind and trying to get the dope, working on your fundamentals. Anything you can do to alleviate some of the stress and mental power required to keep track of all this stuff, the better off you're going to be. And over the course of 2 days, the less wear and tear. You're not going to leave the match with your head spinning going, what was that? At least it reduces some of that you've got this thought process in place for your dope. So know your dope for your gun. So before I continue on, I do want to say thank you to 2 more sponsors. I want to say thank you to Trigger Tech. Trigger Tech Triggers is a sponsor of the show, and we tell everybody all the time that if you're going to want to shoot better, put a better trigger in your rifle. And if you're going to take the time to do that, why not put the best? And so we really love Trigger Tech Triggers, from the single stage to the 2 stage. It's all we put on our guns here. It's what we recommend to our customers as well. And so take the time, stop over to triggertech.com today and take a look at all the different promotions and triggers that they offer, not just for the bolt action rifle, but for many other brands of rifles as well. We'd also like the time to thank MDT. MDT Chassis is also a sponsor of the show. We use them here at the shooting school. They have been with us for quite a while now. And one of the things about MDT that I like a lot is they're always innovating. They're coming out with new products. So, for example, we'll have some videos coming out soon on the Oryx chassis. The Oryx chassis is made by MDT. And I say it all the time that it's one of the best sub $400 chassis on the market that you can now put an ARC rail on, that I really do think could compete with an $800 or $900 chassis system. So lots of different stocks to choose from, including the legendary MDT ACC competition chassis that they offer. So lots of our customers shoot the ACC. So if you're shooting a factory rifle and you got to get it to fit correctly, stop over to mdttac.com today and look at all the different stocks and options that they have. All right, so back to preparing for the match and trying to wrap up a couple of thoughts here. Gear and gear management. We talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, but I want to circle back around. Make sure that the things that you take to the match are tried and proven to be an asset to you. Don't take new gear to a match. Practice with it at home. Decide if it's going to be a permanent part of your kit or not. Maybe if you think it's going to be, take it and try it at some stages, but be very cautious. We call this the gear acquisition syndrome. Musicians are plagued with this as well, by the way. If it's shiny and has a great sales pitch, you buy it. And then you take it to the match. And you only have so much room for all that equipment. And the more options you leave yourself open to all of these different stages as to what equipment you can use, the more complicated they can become. Now you've got gear thrown around everywhere trying to figure out what you're going to use or not use, right? So gear acquisition syndrome. Number one, make sure that you have a reason that you're purchasing it, that it's going to be an asset to you. And number two, make sure you try it and prove it to be worthwhile before you take it to a match. I can tell you I've watched many great shooters over the years lose some of the best matches ever that they could have won simply because they're always showing up with new gear. And that new gear is costing them on some stages. And so just be careful on the new stuff. Now, without boring you of the laundry list of things that I take, just to go over a couple things, I'll carry a couple different heights and bipods or the feet. So like the Atlas bipod, you can buy extensions for shooting uphill and then fold the feet forward for shooting downhill. I do carry a couple different types of bags. So I have some different small square bags that I'll carry. Usually somebody in the group is carrying a bigger bag of some kind. But laser rangefinder, yes. Inclinometer, yes. Wind meter, yes. Extra copy of my dope, yes. Right in the rain paper or dope that will survive being in the rain for 2 days. Rain gear, water, hydration, food. There's all these little things that you'll take. Sunscreen would be a big one. Making sure that you have tried and true clothing from the weather. Weather protection is a big one. A little first aid kit. Get blisters, you get cuts, get your fingers jammed up, anything like that. You can get yourself all patched up and be back into the running again. The other part I want to talk about is the two, I think, really important things to be cautious of going to a match. The first one is just be mentally prepared for the match or be mentally prepared for the consequences of it. Now, what I mean by that is if you're going to be in matches where you are in the zone, it's amazing. Like, you'll hear people call it the flow or whatever they want to call it in different types of mindsets that people get into, whether it's in sports or in any type of competition. And it's amazing when you're shooting some of these matches that you're going to get into this zone to where it's just like you just whistle at the rifle and point and the rifle goes and shoots the target all by itself. I mean, it's happening that efficiently and effectively and easily. Gosh, you can't buy a miss, right? And then there's going to be other matches to where you're not having a good day. Your head absolutely is not in the game. You knew before you went you probably shouldn't have gone. You weren't prepared. Or you just got your head in the bucket. And at those particular matches, what I try to tell guys is enjoy the match. Forget about scores. Forget about keeping score. Remind yourself why you're there, that you're there to have fun. Everybody loses except for one person. It's just on a different scale. So, in essence, it doesn't matter. So have fun. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Hey, you'll be surprised once you start having fun again that you'll probably start climbing up the scoreboard. But B, enjoy the match. I mean, every day is a gift. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're there with friends you may never see again. You know, all of this stuff is sort of important, not the match itself. To win a match with your friends, that's cool. To be there with your friends, that's cooler, right? So if you are mentally prepared for the match, what I try to tell guys to do is when it comes time to shoot, get out of the gossip circle, or I call them the smoke and joke crowd, right? I don't smoke, but I like to tell lots of jokes and have fun just like everybody else out there. And it's as much as a social event as it is a shooting event. I mean, these are people that you relate to, you enjoy spending time with, that share a passion and a hobby that you love. But when it comes time to shoot, I sort of step back a little bit and start thinking about preparing for the stage, start thinking about how I'm going to approach it, thinking about my dope and the wind conditions. And so there's a time to be in that smoke and joke crowd, but there is a time where you sort of just have to bow out quietly. They won't even miss you. You're going to back up. You're going to start looking over your dope and start looking at the wind and just do your own thing. You know, try to get prepared for the stage. Don't be that guy that says, hey, Jamie, you're up. And you're in the middle of telling your 15th hunting story. Bad timing. Probably not going to have a good stage, right? Pay attention. You're there to shoot first, right? And so pay attention, get your stuff ready there. And then as it's getting closer to your time to shoot, just relax, enjoy, keep thinking about what you want to do, have a good game plan, maybe a plan B, and go have some fun. And then go back to the smoke and joke crowd. If you find that you are, like I said, having your head in the bucket and you crash a stage or two, sometimes people start to question their equipment. Get that out of your head. It could be your equipment. It could be a million things. You don't know what happens in any particular stage that catches you off guard. You could have held the wrong direction and hold over and hold off. That stuff happens. It's called shooting. But if you start to really doubt your equipment, you're going to probably have some really bad stages coming up because you're going to question. And as you keep doing that, you get down this rabbit hole deeper and deeper. So just in the match itself, just rinse and repeat. Forget about the last stage. Step up as if it's your first shot of the day and have fun. Throw your hat in the ring. If it is equipment, it'll rear its ugly head and you're going to have to deal with it at some point eventually anyway. But don't let it get in your head right away. It's going to take a while to convince you whether or not it is or it isn't. Just keep shooting. If you have to check everything over, check it over. But don't let your head get in the bucket. That's all I'm saying. Enjoy the match. So the last two things I want to talk about, and I think both are just as important, is being physically fit or being prepared for the match physically. A lot of us are older. I'll be 50 here this year. I've had multiple surgeries on my right knee, so I don't bend and move as good as I used to when I was younger. But try to take care of yourself. Maybe use it as a motivational point to get in better shape, to be flexible. Do 10 burpees a day, every day. But what I'm saying is, and I'm suffering from what my good friend Walt calls the COVID-20. And we're not talking about COVID-19. The COVID-20 is the 20 pounds I put on since we stopped working out at the gym in March or April, right? So I've got to get rid of that and get back into shape. But if you're going to shoot some matches, try to focus on your health. You are going to be under a little bit of stress. You're going to be carrying, a lot of equipment around. You're going to be in hot environments. You're going to be out in weather. You're going to be walking up and down hills, maybe moving and transitioning between targets. So maybe use that as an excuse or as a reason as to try to start getting really flexible, because a lot of these positions they shoot from now almost makes you have to be flexible. I probably fall guilty of that sometimes just because I can't bend my right knee the whole way. But on the physical health side, try to stay in shape. Try to get to the gym. Use it as motivation. And you'll be surprised that if you're physically in shape, there's a little bit of mental health that'll go along with that too. You're not going to be as tired during the event or get as tired as quickly. You're going to feel stronger in the different positions. You're not going to feel the fatigue. The rifle certainly won't feel as heavy. So physical health is sort of important. We're not playing professional football here. So, I don't want you to think that, you got to dive off the deep end, and that's what I'm talking about. But having good cardio workout, having good strength workout, having really good flexibility, all of that's probably going to be really important. You're going to enjoy the match, but then B, even lessen your chance of having an injury of some kind. If you slip and fall, you kneel funny, or your leg slides out, and you're pulling a muscle that you're really not warmed up and stretched up and ready to take on that type of stuff with rifles and equipment. So, not to shortcut it, but I do think your physical ability or trying to stay in really good shape, at least the best that you can, is probably going to help you along in the match shooting. It's going to give you more confidence. You're not going to get as fatigued. You're going to be more flexible. You're going to be stronger. Getting to the different parts of the barricade, you're going to be faster. And so I think that part is probably really important. And the last thing, of course, and I don't want to skimp on this one at all, is safety. We've seen this over the years to where you get so focused on shooting targets or the stage that's coming up that people lose track of what they're doing as far as, how they're controlling their muzzle in the different directions they're pointing it in, to even clearing the weapons coming off the lines. So at the matches, it's very easy to get distracted with all the chaos that's going on. And it's good chaos. It's fun. But it can be very distracting. You're paying attention to a lot of different things, to friends you haven't seen in a while, conversations. And just remember the safety aspect of it. Handling the weapon properly, making sure it's clear, range flags if required. Watch your buddies. They might fall asleep with the wheel come off the line, their bolts down. Say, hey, Jim, hey, pull that bolt up, whatever his name is, Tim, or whoever your shooting buddy is, let him know or her know that her bolt's down. So in the end at the match, probably, and I think it's the number one goal everywhere, is that everybody goes home in the same condition that they arrived in, safe and sound, and healthy. And so don't lose track of the safety aspects of it. It's very fun. It's entertaining. Your buddies are ripping on you. You're giving your buddy a hard time. It is a hoot. But just keep safety in that forefront mind, because that's where you can fall asleep at the wheel. And then unfortunately, accidents can and do happen. So the safety aspect, I would keep that really, really in mind as you're going through. And I hope it helped a little bit. Hopefully I get to share a little bit more as some of the tips and tricks. Over the next couple episodes, I'm going to bring on a couple instructors. I'm going to bring on a couple competitive shooters. And my big goal is to bring on some match directors, because I think it's really important in preparing for a match is to have conversations with these guys as to things that they see that can help you improve. They watch this stage for 60, 80, 100, 200 shooters. They can tell you what the common mistakes being made are. And I think it's really great perspective for us, the shooters, to spend time with them and talk to them, and a big insight as to how difficult their job is, how dangerous their job is sometimes. And, they're trying to make it entertaining and enjoyable for the shooters and safe. So over the next couple of podcasts, we're going to have a variety of people, guests coming on and sharing their insight for preparing for the match. And so it'll be me doing the interviewing rather than me just trying to share with you the years of experience that I've had. So I do want to take the time to say thank you for joining us here at the podcast. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. I do appreciate all the emails and such that we get. Thank you so much. I got some emails in Europe and UK and Canada and some of the national markets or international markets. Our podcast is climbing really well, and that is really awesome. So all of you that are listening to us outside of the United States, thank you for taking the time for tuning in and for making the podcast a success over there too. We really, really appreciate it. As always, the pleasure is always mine. I do want to share real quick that you'll see some changes coming up on our website. We're at wolfprecision.net. We are transitioning over to complete custom rifles being built by the customers. And so you're going to see a tier 1 and 2 builds coming up and more of an explanation as to what they are coming next. We'll also have some more YouTube videos coming up starting tomorrow on both the tier 1, tier 2. We have some reviews coming up on the new igniter action that we're using and the processes we're going through with each build and how you assemble these rifles. So get a chance to stop over tomorrow. We should have a new video posted up by 5:30 every Friday. And I think the next one's going to be on the explanation of the tier 1, tier 2 builds. We also have some stocks in inventory that we are selling. We will no longer be selling stocks directly to customers. We're going to focus on the parts that we're experts in and trying to focus on helping maintain your rifle on that end. But we're going to help you in selecting the stock and ordering it. And that's what part of the YouTube channel is going to be, in explaining the differences in all the stocks, things you have to watch out for, and how you put them together. But if you get a chance, stop over to our website. It's wolfprecision.net, and you'll see all the really cool, exciting things that are going on there too. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. I really do appreciate it. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you are listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.